Okay, I think we're good to go. So here we
Yes.
are again with Dr. Lori, our kitchen table
Hi.
chat. Got
Yes.
my mug, but it doesn't look like you're at the kitchen table, but that's
I
quite all right.
know. You know what? My
Sort of.
kitchen is a wreck today, Cheryl.
Oh, okay. We have
It's
to
a
make
wreck.
exceptions. We
It's
must be
Saturday.
flexible. We will be flexible. So
Yes.
thank you for coming again. I have a few, let's see, 3 podcasts with you, and they're all so good that I want to continue with the same conversations that have been unfolding, and the conversation about health. And you had a question for me before I press record, so we can
I
move
wanted
there.
to pick up where we left off, which was you saying, I am going to break my sugar habits, and acknowledging and recognizing that it is a habit, and that, you know, it sort of had a grip on you in some way. And now we talked about it. I shared with you some of the tips and tricks on my Break the Sugar Habit program. And I'm so impressed. You dive right in. You know, most people really do need the hand holding and the coaching. And that's what I do. That's what I provide for them week by week, and get you over those roadblocks and those challenges. But you, my friend, you jumped right in, and we had a few little texts back and forth. But
they were key.
I sent you the tools, and you did it. And so I want to hear where we are with you and your sugar.
So I do want to tell you that I think the texts were very helpful, because we all say we want to break the habit. We all want to get on the bandwagon. We all want to be healthy. We all want to be fit. We want to change, blah, blah, blah. But when you hang up the phone from whomever you're making this confession with, and you go to your kitchen, or you go to out to dinner, or you're at a banquet, or it's somebody's birthday, you need to be reminded of the path and the vision you have for yourself. And what the text that really helped me, you must have sent it maybe 2 days after I said, I'm really going to get on the bandwagon, is you said, you have to ask yourself, what is your why? What is your why for doing this? And I actually, you might recall, I didn't respond to you right away. I said, let me really reflect on this, because that was the weekend of Anthony's birthday. And I knew that whatever my why was, it was not going to win that weekend. So I said, let me have his birthday party. Let me think about it. And I figured it out. And I figured out what my why was, which is nothing big, unusual. It's everybody's why. I really want to age well. I want to be healthy and independent. Now, I wouldn't mind being fly as well. You know, I have nothing against looking good and wearing nice clothes, but that was becoming not enough for me, because frankly, I was over that. You know, I wasn't fly when I was 20. So why am I going to be fly in my 60s? Why do I need to even have that as a goal? And it wasn't making it as a goal for me. So when I identified that my real goal is to age well and be independent and be able to travel and be able to hike in my 80s and 90s, maybe, who knows? That's a better goal for me. That's more relevant. It's more about what I truly feel. Now, that won't work for the 20 or 30 somethings, clearly. Maybe they're trying to be fly, or they're trying to whatever. They're trying to live their best life and let everybody know about it. So that, I think that was the text of yours that really got me to get to the point of stop pretending. Either do it or stop talking about it. And I just did it. And like you said, the cravings went away very quickly once I had my why. So I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. You're exactly right. That's where I begin. Everything in life has to begin with, why are you doing what you're doing? What is the reason? And if you don't have a real solid reason, what I found is it's harder to stick to, and you're less inclined to do that. And so, you know, when it comes, and I love, and this is for all of us who are a little over 40, that's all we're claiming.
Just a little
over 40. So for all of us who are a little over 40, that that really health should be our number one why. Because we need to think about how are we going to age into our future. And what I have found, and this is what you know as well, is that we make a plan for many things in our lives, many benchmarks, whether it's, whether we're saving money to buy a car, or whether we're going to go to college, or where we're going to live, or if we're going to have children, get married and have children, buying our first home. We create a plan to accomplish that, right?
Yes, we do.
But the one thing you and I both noticed, just being in the practice of health, is that most do not create a plan for their health. Yeah. It's a come what may plan.
Yes, it's true. We don't even think about a plan, really. It's just we live our life. Yes. And whatever happens, happens. Yeah. Which reminds me of what my patients who were coming to me for family planning services, they weren't really coming for family planning services. They were coming for maybe their well woman check, but it would get around to family planning, and they would, when I would talk to them about their plans for getting pregnant and why they weren't using birth control, they would always say, well, whatever happens, happens. And that, okay, we know how to reply to that in the health setting. That it is not going to happen unless you make it happen. Right. But in the health setting, with the global health, your whole health state, we take that exact attitude. Whatever happens, happens. I'm going to live my life, and whatever happens, happens. Yeah. As though it's preordained.
Right. So I think all of us, I mean, if we stop and reflect on it, I think all of us want the same things. We want to be well. We want to live with, well-being for as long as we're here. We want as much joy in our life as we can muster and we can have. But we do know that all of that can become diminished with poor health.
Absolutely. Those of us who are just a little bit over 40 know that better than anyone. Exactly. If only because we've witnessed it in our parents. Yeah. And the people that we love and care for who are older than us. We can see what's down the road. Right.
So that's pretty much who comes to me, because they start to recognize that, wait a minute, I'm looking at my parents, I'm caring for aging parents. I want to be able to do the same things that I've always done. And maybe I'm starting to have some impairments, like what we call pre-diabetes, which I say is no such thing. That's like being a little pregnant. It doesn't exist. You are or you aren't. And so I don't let others get away with thinking that, oh, it's just a little thing. No, your health is the greatest thing in your life, because your life is your health. Yeah. And everything in it impacts your health. Everything in your life, from the thoughts that you think, to the behaviors that you express, to the habits that you create, it's all dictating your health.
Yeah. And those habits are powerful.
Yeah. So one simple thing, that's why I came up with the Break the Sugar Habit program. When I looked at my over 20 years of experience in health care and dealing with thousands, tens of thousands of patients, and looking at the growing epidemic of diabetes, hypertension, obviously overweight, and even obesity, it was really related. They were all related to one thing, and that was the foods that we eat. And the one thing that has changed over the years with the foods that we eat is the addition of sugar in everything from infant formula to chapstick. Why do we need sweet chapstick?
When you told me that in our last conversation about the chapstick, I noticed that my favorite chapstick has to have sugar in it. There's no way.
Of some kind.
Some sweetener. And then I noticed my fondness for Coffee Mate and Cremora it's got some awful sugars in it. I mean, maybe even high fructose corn syrup or something that is really harmful, but gives it that sweet taste. And so I'm a believer now, and I really want you to talk about first, the topic, when did we start being overweight?
Yeah.
Overweight, and
Overweight.
why, and
Yeah.
what we can do about it, because you've made a believer out of me. And I just
Yeah,
want
so
others
I
to
mean,
hear
it
this.
really, it's all down the same path. It's all down the same line. You know, when I started doing the research and looking at, okay, what happened? What? I'm always interested in the what and the why, because if I can get to the cause, I can better understand where we need to go for a cure, not controlling the problem, but curing and reversing the problem, which is all possible. And unfortunately, we're not told that. That's not part of the selling message.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I started looking at that, I said, okay, 1950s, people were you know, fit, pretty slim in this country. And what happened? And so as I started doing more research on food, after World War II, and the US became really highly involved in feeding the world, essentially, we started processing and packaging food. Now, Kellogg's came along somewhere around the 1940s, 50s. And of course, we were fed the message, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Well, that was really initiated by the Kellogg's manufacturing company.
How convenient.
How convenient would that be?
Wow.
Yes.
Never thought about it like that.
Right? So that's kind of when all that messaging began around then. And what is Kellogg's cornflakes? I believe that was their original product, cornflakes. It's a denatured corn, which is a starch, which is a simple sugar, which turns into glucose immediately upon eating. And now all we do add is some milk and some more sugar on top, and we are in trouble.
Yeah.
We are in trouble. So it kind of began there with breakfast is the best meal of the day and have your cornflakes. So that was not healthful messaging. Now, obviously, if we're in a position where we're in a state of starvation and there's food deficits and shortages, we're going to eat whatever's available. Okay. And maybe there were some circumstances post-war where that was looking to be the case. But as we began to learn more around 1940s, 1950s, Eisenhower, I believe, was president, had a heart attack. And so they began investigating, you know, what is the problem with, you know, why did he have a heart attack? What was this all about? And so that's when the whole concept of fat in our diet became, it's the fat. The scientists came up with the idea that it was the fat that was problematic. And we need to start getting some of the fat out of the diet. Now, that was also the time where food started to become, just along with Kellogg's, packaged, industrialized, denatured. Anytime you see enriched with, that means they've taken out all the great nutrients that came naturally with that grain or with that product, and they've had to replace nutrients back in there. So enriched does not mean anything significant. So what happened was they started in their industrialization of food and packaging and processing foods, started taking the fat out. Well, then when the fat came out, it tasted like cardboard. And so they had to come up with, wait, how are we going to get people to like this?
So that would be in the 70s, I assume. So that was around
70s 60s. They started and see, you know, the research begins 10 to 20 years prior.
Ahead of the introduction.
Then it hits the public.
Yeah. So and you know, one thing I should say before you go further is that I'm quite certain that you're also recognizing not all of this is conspired. Some things start out as a very noble idea, feeding the world, and they gradually corrupt into being making food denatured and convenient and fattening the world. You know,
exactly.
there was no
Exactly.
master plan, probably.
No. I don't
Yeah.
believe so. I mean, like all of technology, just like we're able to be on screen and
Yeah,
and devices for hours at a time, and
that's
now
right.
we all have dry eye problems. It wasn't a
Exactly.
plan.
Yeah, or so the communication explosion, and now
Yeah,
social media, and now and then disinformation,
that's
you
right.
know, so that it
Right.
is, I guess people must, in hearing these conversations, understand there is no grand conspiracy. What
No.
there is humanity using their ingenuity to solve problems, which then become humanity using their tendency towards self-interest and serving their own perhaps corrupt needs, and then it becomes exploitative or unhealthy or whatever.
So well said.
Unfortunate.
So well said.
Yeah.
Exactly. So no, it doesn't always start out to be problematic or even intentional in deception.
Yeah.
It does not. So yes, there was an attempt to feed the world after World War II, and processing foods and conveniencing foods and having foods be able to last longer on the shelf with packaging. That all came to be, as opposed to having to go to your garden and eat that tomato, within a week. It could last months on a truck. So that is how food changed from the way we once ate from the garden, farm to table, right? Garden to table, to now it's industrialized, it's packaged, it's processed, it's convenient. And then it became drive-through by the 1970s, right? 60s and 70s. And it was all denatured for the most part, all of it. Denatured. And so we bought into it because it tastes so good.
Yeah. And I do think it's actually chemically addictive. I do think that the low fiber, high caloric, sugar-rich foods have a physiologic impact on us, even beyond what we're starting to recognize.
Right. Now, I don't even know if this is still around, but when I was doing chemistry for medical school, they showed, it could have been biology or chemistry. There was a video that I watched. Now, here again, this was years ago, over more than 20 some odd years ago. And they showed this video. And it was a video of the food industry's Science Food and Flavoring Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they did was they were coming up with flavoring profiles, how to flavor their processed packaging foods that they were making, freezer foods, all kinds of foods. And what they would do is they would use brain scans, PET scans, that they would hook up their test subjects to. And when they were taste testing the new product, they were looking for that part of the brain, the pleasure center of the brain, that lit up on the scans.
Wow.
And when that happened, they knew they had a winner.
Yes.
They knew it was going to be a product that you would want over and over again. Mm-hmm. And as I recall, here again, it was years ago, and I don't even know how to find this video anymore. This was shown in a college class. And that was how the Lay's potato chips came up with the slogan, I bet you can't eat just one.
Yes. We all know the slogan too, because it's so true. Definitely.
And it was scientifically derived, according to my recollection and what I learned in biochemistry.
Amazing.
So like you said, the packaging, the processing of foods now, they have a science in place to determine the flavor profiles that are going to be more addictive. And and we use the word addictive, obviously in a negative sense, but they're using it in the sense of, you will buy more of our product.
Yes. And it is truly addictive because you will buy products even when you know they're bad for you. You will
Oh,
buy
that's true.
products and eat to the point of affecting your relationships, affecting your finances, affecting your ability to get out and be productive in the world. I happened upon My 600-Pound Life or something like that, a
Oh
series
my
of
goodness, yes.
apparently it's a show that everybody knows about except me, but I happened upon it and was really enlightened by how, if this is not an addiction, then what is it? This is
Right.
there's even withdrawal. There is everything about the signs of addiction in the foods that we eat, some of them, in some of them.
Yes.
And so we
Yes.
really have to take it very seriously.
Yeah, so here's when I explain this to many patients and people that I'm coaching and working with, they get to understand, oh, wow, you know what? Wait a minute. So even though, like you said, not always intentional, but maybe so, we are being manipulated.
Yes, we are. We are
We are being
being
manipulated.
marketed
And when you
to.
understand that, many people say, oh no, not me, not
Yeah.
here, not now. Now that I know, I'm going to at least be aware, at
Mhm.
least be aware. So by the 1970s, we had all bought into the convenience of fast foods, of easy foods. And here's the medical statistics behind the medical data behind that. By the 1970s, diabetes tripled.
Yes.
Right? So we didn't have this problem, as well as the waistlines of Americans.
Yeah, the obesity.
Right? We didn't
Probably
have this
triple
problem.
too. Yeah. And the age
At
at which
least,
obesity becomes a problem has got to have halved,
yeah, right. Exactly. So now here we are with an increase in obesity, an increase in hypertension, an increase in diabetes, and now burgeoning heart disease, although they have been on the forefront of developing medications.
Yes.
So the pharmaceutical industry really kicked in also around the 1940s. There was not this plethora of drugs, a pill for every problem. There was only a couple of problems, and there was really only a few pills that you could use to treat them. But the pharmaceutical industry saw, I mean, here again, all of these things are happening in the background way before they get to us. And the pharmaceutical industry had ramped up their research, their understanding, their knowledge of what was happening health-wise, what was happening behavior-wise. And by the 1970s, they had ramped up. And so what started to happen was, well, there did become a pill for every problem.
Definitely. Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel that there is any level of collusion or collaboration, or at least mutual kind of wishing each other well? The food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, they must have perceived that they are each good for the other, and that they have common interests in a way.
I would not. Now, that's a question I have posed recently many times, and I have not stopped to do the research on who owns Kraft Foods.
Yeah.
And is it, is it Pfizer and Kraft, or whoever makes the diabetes medicines? Who are, are in partnership, financial partnership? I would not be surprised.
And it may not have to, I was not even thinking necessarily of financial partnership, because that is overt. I was thinking of even just a kind of mutual understanding that as people make poorer and poorer lifestyle choices as it relates to food, they need more and more medicines. And the more you let people feel that their ill health is inevitable, the more they will depend on medicines, and the less they will reflect and think, perhaps there is something in my environment, some simple solution relating to my lifestyle that could take care of all of these problems, but instead they reach for a pill. Now, that reaching for a pill is easier. Taking a pill is easier than cutting the sugar out of one's diet in some ways, but I think there has to have been, at least on a barely conscious level, an understanding that in order for pharmaceutical companies to make optimum profits, you need people who don't die, but get good and sick for the rest of their lives with a chronic disease. And that's what we've got now. And the food industry has to see at least their role in it to some extent, but and not feel a sense of guilt. It's like, you don't have to eat these potato chips and you don't have to eat these Snickers bars. But the pharmaceutical industry, I wonder how guilt-free they feel, really, because so much research that goes into creating effective pharmaceuticals actually uncover what the root of the problem is. That the root of the problem may just be sugar, or may just be added salt. And instead of marketing that to people, we say, but you can take this pill here.
Yeah.
And but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole in this conversation.
We already went down that rabbit hole.
Well, we got to do some more research to dig out that rabbit hole, but I would like to let you continue telling us what we can do about it, despite the fact that we know things are set up against us.
Yeah, and I think, and I hear what you're saying, I think it's only collusion. And it's nothing wrong with one company being in financial partnership with another company, ownership, parent companies owning different aspects, multiple streams. That's all legal. It's all legal. So there is no, it's nothing illegal about it. I think the collusion, it's only a collusion, I think, in this case, what we're talking about, is if it is a recognized fact that foods are the cause of illness. And if we don't recognize that as a fact, there's no collusion.
So is there, I think that's a recognized fact, but what do you think? I'm not sure. Maybe I recognize it, but is it widely recognized?
Right, is it a widely recognized fact? And no, it's not. It's not. It's not it might be recognized, but it's not identified. And so if it's not revealed to you when you walk into your doctor's office to say, you know what, now it is revealed in a sense, yes, sugar is problematic for diabetes. Yes, it's a nice blanket statement, but what has sugar in it? Well, how much sugar should I be eating? How much? The American Heart Association says I should only have 4 teaspoons of sugar a day. Well, nobody told me that. Where is that? Where do I find that information? And that is in the American Heart Association.
Yeah, it's a subtle message. It's kind of like a little asterisk.
Fine print, small print. Yeah. So it's there, but it's not here. Like I said, it has to be identified publicly, widely, and that's where it's not happening. And I have some reasoning why, and I think you kind of went down that road, with the pharmaceuticals, because they ramped up in the 1970s, and by the 1970s, there really was beginning to be a pill for every problem. Oh my God, I don't have to do anything. I just go and they tell me and they give me a pill and now I'm fixed. And you're not fixed. You're controlled.
Yes.
Is what you are. And here's, now this is just my perspective of how I saw things unfold. By the 1980s, doctors were becoming employees, right? We gave up our own practices, and we bought into a system of healthcare that was owned by conglomerates. And now even though when we walk in that room, we are the authority, but when we have to answer to our employer, we are not.
Yes.
And so doctors became employees. And here's what I started to see happen. So by the 1980s, everybody was overweight or becoming overweight, right? And so you would go to your doctor and they would say, you know, you got to lose some weight. Now, even though they may not have had strategies to be able to offer you, like stop eating sugar or let's exercise more, go for walks. But they were constantly saying, you got to lose weight. You got to lose weight. And what I saw happen was patients would leave and complain that all that doctor told me was I need to lose weight, that I was fat and I had to lose something. They started complaining. Now, when you're an employee working for a company, corporation, or otherwise, management never likes complaints. And when they started getting more complaints from patients, well, that doctor didn't do nothing for me, but told me I was fat.
You even got the body language mastered.
Right, exactly. Then management now steps to the doctors and says, you know, we really would, we don't appreciate the complaints that we're getting. We really would like you to message, you know, say it differently or do something different, but we don't, we just, these complaints aren't good. So doctors stopped talking. They stopped saying it. And then what happened in media around that time also, on every magazine cover, fat is where it's at.
Yeah.
Right? Fat is, big girls are in. Right? And it's not about shaming, it's not about, but it's about health.
Yeah.
And so that was not the messaging. So now, even if you are in healthcare, how do you counteract that messaging?
Yeah.
That it's okay to be overweight and carry excess poundage. It's okay. So doctors stopped talking and the pharmaceutical company ramped up even more and said, hey, doc, you ain't got to worry about that. We got a pill for that.
Yes. We got them covered. So, you know, what's strange to think about too, is that the world likes simple answers. We all like simple answers. We like things black and white. This is good, this is bad. And the reality is when you're dealing with something like something that's in the population health range, when you're looking at the whole population as a whole and the trends that you're seeing, two things are right. One is that it is good to have a healthy body image and not to feel overly ashamed of oneself and not to want to hide instead of exercising. That's all true. And we shouldn't be shaming each other. And, you know, all of the ethical things around what language we use to describe how to get healthier, that's all important. But by the same token, we have to be honest about the fact that your well-being is not optimum when you are 20, 30, 50% overweight. And how do you message that to the public so that they don't feel like, oh, you're giving mixed messages? Because frankly, it is a mixed situation. Two things, we have to start, I think, as mature humanity, realizing that two things can be right at the same time. And that you have to work both sides of it. You know, there is a balance here to be struck. So that's the dilemma of the doctors. And in Bermuda, I should say, we are increasingly, there are situations of managed care where doctors are employees, but it's mostly a private care system. And but what we are seeing is that you don't need management to tell you to stop irritating patients. You get the message as well when your patients just say, you know, I'm not going back to that doctor because he ain't gonna tell me nothing, but I need to lose weight. I've heard that many times. So they just kind of express their discontent by not showing up, by not being compliant, you know, not following up, and the same message comes. And so doctors do feel inhibited about laying it on the table, which is that these are the facts about your numbers, and this is what you can do about it. It's that, and this is what you can do about it part that I think people are ready to hear, especially in this culture in Bermuda. people don't really like taking pills that much. And we might have always used to like it, but I think we're starting to feel like, well, for one, they're too expensive. You know, if I could lose this weight or improve my hemoglobin A1C without taking this expensive medication, which shall remain nameless, I will prefer to do that. But somebody needs to tell me how to do that.
Right. Right. So that's where I think that's my expertise. And because I've been doing it like that for a long time and showing people, my motto that you'll see everywhere on my website and all kinds of places is, it's time for doctors to not just treat you, but teach you how to be well.
Yes.
Right. So you're right. It doesn't take much for you to understand when a patient is irritated. So I kind of, and this comes from the heart. It's what I want for every person that I see. I want you living your best life. That's what I want. So I start there. And I say, we're not talking, if we don't talk about weight, we're not talking about health. And all we're doing is giving you a pill for every problem. That gets their attention, because you're so right. Most people, and you and I have heard it probably for all of our career, most people come in the door saying, doctor, I really don't like taking all those pills. I really don't want to take pills. I don't. But if you don't have anything else in your toolbox to offer patients, a strategy, a plan, even homework. I send people home with videos to watch, with documentaries because after I've said what I said, I want it reinforced. It's kind of like I sent you, we talked about the Break the Sugar Habit program. You said you wanted it. And then I started following up with, here's a text, here's this, that now keeps you back in it because this is what you say you want. So, and now the beauty of electronic medical records is most of them allow you to do things like graph a patient's blood pressure and graph their weight. And so I pull up the graph of their weight, and they get to see where they were, perhaps 2017, and where they are now. And if that graph is steadily going up, I'm like, this is where you were. And they are like, oh, and so
make it real.
They see it for themselves. And what I encourage and work with them to do is get back to their optimal. So if their low point was 2017 on the graph, that's, you did that. You were there. So let's figure out the plan for you to get back to where you were when you were feeling better, when your blood pressure was lower, when your A1C, your glucose was lower, when you felt more vibrant. And isn't that what you want?
So now let me play the doctor's advocate.
Yes.
That in an office setting, that takes time. And the general practitioners will say, well, that's all well and good, but I have 6 minutes or I have 10 minutes with this person. How do we make some progress? Is it possible in that setting?
So here's how we must do it. We must do it. I need more than 6 minutes with a patient. I need 30-minute visits. And that is what I need to be most effective at doing what I do, which is impacting the lives of others. That's what I need. Yes, I may be an employee, but if you can do what I do, you don't need me. So this is what I need. And I've been doing some keynote speaking for physicians. Actually, I just did the osteopathic symposium here a few weeks ago. And that's what I am now, the messaging, part of the messaging is about their own personal well-being. And that is part of the messaging of they have to control the theater, the environment, the room. And that requires them saying, this is what I need to be the most effective in what I do.
Okay.
And I think a big part of it, and we're seeing it here, and the shortage is real of physicians, probably there too, but certainly in this country. And, everyone is talking the word burnout. Yes, we do. We see a lot of people, and we have to engage with a lot of different lives on a lot of different levels. when you love what you're doing, you're never burnt out.
Yeah.
You get tired, but you're not burnt out. So the problem is, in my perspective, is physicians are not burnt out, really, because we can endure a lot. They haven't bought in to a system that doesn't align with their values and their desire to treat patients in the way they see most effective. So it's not burnout. They simply have not bought in. And when you work in an environment every day where you are frustrated because you can't get it done the way you know is best, when you are angered by how you are being devalued or dismissed, oh yeah, you're gonna get burned. We're gonna call it burnout. But the problem is, if we are having a hard time buying in to a system that doesn't recognize the best of who we are.
Yeah, now that is the opening of another rabbit hole that is so important, I think, to delve into at some point, which is what you've explained, is that physicians have to up their advocacy role as it relates to what they need to bring to their patients to give the opportunity for optimal care. They have to advocate in a way that they haven't. And here, and I'm speaking particularly to the physician community in Bermuda, that is privatized primarily, the advocacy has to be to the insurers, to the payers in the system, the people who are going to reimburse you for doing some tests or ordering some procedures or giving a prescription for medication. Those things are reimbursable, to whether they be to the client or to the physician, but spending time assessing a person's lifestyle and their challenges and coaching them and motivating them and helping to find out their why, those things are not reimbursed in the way that they should be. Teaching your patient about how best to care for their body, that is not equitably reimbursed. So sure, that advocacy, physicians are going to have to get perhaps more strategic, more organized, more devoted to doing that piece, because otherwise they're not going to be able to, as you describe it, create a system of care that is aligning with their value system and what they know is best for the patients. That's where we are right now. We know what's best for the patients, perhaps, but we're not able to deliver on that, because if we did, we would see 8 patients a day or 10 patients a day instead of 30 or 40, and then somebody wouldn't get paid. So how do we move into that space, and how do physicians organize to have a greater voice in leveraging for better and more appropriate reimbursement? That will be the topic of another conversation. I agree. And you might have to come here to Bermuda really to help us at least have this conversation with ourselves.
Yes,
and that's not in the same old way.
Exactly. That's exactly where I'm starting with my presentations to doctors and doing medical conferences. That is the place that, I'm talking about our personal well-being first, right? Because that's important, that's critically important, but also how we engage in our work is probably 70% of our well-being. And having the tools to do that and understanding why you feel the way you feel in the workplace and how to change that. So it does begin with us first. And and then part of the problem is the paying system. Is the paying system. Now, how we get to that, that's going to require a little bit more research. And like you said, a little bit more organization. In other countries, I've heard this said before, in other places where there is universal healthcare, and doctors are pretty much all on one system. It's almost like government medicine. And when their contracts are not up to standard or up to par with the doctors who are the providers of care, the doctors just say, it won't be any medicine today. Right? And guess what? The organizers of the system of healthcare say, wait right here, let us work this out. Let us fix this.
Yeah.
And they do. And they do.
Well, that's
at
encouraging.
Some point, some point you're going to have to stand up and say, we're just not doing that today.
Yeah, interesting. That is a radical
it's radical
opinion
but
to
that's
take,
how
but
it's done in other
that's
countries.
perhaps where we're there. So yeah, I do want to talk more about that. So just to summarize for this particular topic, which was really focused at the patients, at the consumers of the health system, and the people, those of us who don't want to be don't want to be consumers. We want to be healthy. We want to live well and age well. It just give a few sentences of a summary as to why, when we started being overweight and why, and maybe what we can do about it in the short term.
Right. So the reason why our waistlines widen is because of food, and food changed over the last 30, 40, maybe 50 years. And we began to adopt an appetite for the foods that were there and available for us. But here's what I tell everyone. When I focus on eating plant focused. Plant focused does not necessarily mean vegan or vegetarian, but what it does mean is eating 80% of your meals that are foods that are grown from the earth. So that's fruits, that's vegetables, that's whole grains, that's beans, that's nuts, right? And so when we focus our diet on plant-focused foods, we naturally become healthier.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And I particularly like the simplicity of that. It's not all or nothing. It is not doing a diet that you'd have to change your whole social network to follow it. 80% whole foods that you can get from the earth. And I think one of the things we'll have to talk about going forward is, in some communities that is not affordable. It's either not accessible or it's not affordable. And we're struggling with that everywhere. Just like in the United States, Bermuda is struggling to make a healthy diet affordable. And so that is another conversation. But for now,
I got the solution for that.
You got, oh, wow. Does this have to do with gardening? Just to give a little.
One seed is all it takes.
One seed. Okay. That's yet another conversation.
Yes.
So I have so many notes here, and I should have told you why I was looking down so much. It wasn't a gadget. It was, my paper and pen. Yeah, I'm a note taker. I believe in paper and pen. I love to say that to the young people.
When we're a little over 40, we remember what we write.
Exactly. So I've got some notes. I have some ideas for our next conversations, and I really want to thank you for taking time on a Saturday morning to have a kitchen table chat with me for the youngins. I hope some youngins will listen to this. We will make sure, and we'll have you back again soon.
I can't wait. And I can't wait to be there with you soon.
It will be soon. So thank you, Dr. Lori.
All right. Bye.